There are two different ways to throw and hit a baseball, left and right.
One to Hardy. Hits one out to strike. 2 pitch. Swing and a fly.
While this may seem like a simple difference, it fundamentally changes everything about how the game is played. From your chances of making it to the pros, to how pitchers attack you, to where you're positioned on the field. In fact, being left-handed triples your chances of making it to Major League Baseball. Despite lefties making up just 10% of the population, they throw 30% of all MLB innings and take 40% of plate appearances. There's no secret, lefties are valuable, both as hitters and pitchers, but maybe not for the reasons you'd think. Left-handed pitching is like gold. You can never have enough of it. Even young athletes seem to understand that being a lefty gives you a leg up in the baseball world. Take Hall of Famer Tom Glavine, for example. Despite being exceptionally talented in both baseball and hockey growing up, he ultimately chose the diamond over the ice. His decision came down to a simple fact. Being a left-handed pitcher gave him a unique edge in baseball that he just didn't have in hockey. So valued were dominant lefties that when the game's greatest slugger, Babe Ruth, gave up pitching to play every day in outfield, not everyone was impressed by the move. Hall of Famer Trish Speaker snarled that taking the best left-handed pitcher in baseball and converting him into a right fielder is one of the dumbest things he'd ever seen. Speaker would not get hired as a data analyst today because Babe Ruth went on to post the best WAR in history at 182.6. Ruth's best season as a pitcher came in 1916 when he went 23-12 with an ERA of 1.75, which translated to a WAR of 8.8, which is incredible. Moving Ruth to right field was a smart decision, but the ingrained biases towards favoring lefty pitchers was immense. In 1919, when Ruth first set an MLB record for homers in a season with 29, he still pitched over 133 innings. He pitched to a WAR of 0.8. But as a hitter, he was 9.1. He was sold to the Yankees the next season, and except for 13 innings he'd pitch over the next 2 seasons, he was done as a hurler. The reason it took so long for Ruth to become an everyday player was because of his left arm, which was deemed more valuable than the 44-ounce bat he swung. Even today, lefties make about 30% of all starts. A recent study showed that teams valued left-handed pitching more because lefties earned more money in salary than righties, even if their numbers were similar. It's not hard to see why there is added value in finding lefties to both hit and to pitch. 2 charts capture the dynamics very clearly. The first shows the breakdown of the righty-lefty split using WOBA, and what jumps out is the fact that lefty hitters, when facing lefties, really struggle, hitting 30 points lower than against righties. Now, there are exceptions like Nathaniel Lowe of the Rangers, who is a lefty who hits lefties better than he hits righties, 292 versus 257. The entire Arizona team hit 284 against lefties, with a WOBA of 343, while Seattle could muster just an average of 213 with a WOBA of 293. For context, the lefty-lefty MLB average last season was 234. Now, when righties face lefties, damage is done. The same with lefties against righties. They are mirror images of each other, which is why platoons exist in the first place. But that implies that righty hitters and lefty hitters are equally valuable, since the numbers are so close when facing a pitcher of the opposite hand. But the next chart shows why lefty hitters and lefty pitchers are seemingly more valuable. The situation on the diamond isn't the same for both groups. Lefties face righties 73% of their at-bats, while righties see lefties just 27% of the time. So even though the WOBA might be the same for the splits, the frequency isn't. Even though, on average, MLB righties crush left-handed pitching, they don't see much of it. Conversely, even though lefty pitchers can gobble up lefty hitters, over 70% of their matchups are against righties. In data circles, this is called a platoon penalty, and it's something that left-handers must deal with. If they had a platoon advantage as often as righties, they'd see a 0.2 reduction in ERA. The perfect illustration of this is the Dodgers. Max Muncy basically sucked against lefties last year, clocking in with a 172 average. He hit almost 254 against right-handed pitchers, but Kike Hernandez hit 235 against lefties, so it made sense to sit Muncy against lefties and play Hernandez instead. It wasn't like Kike tore up lefties, he was just marginally better. But in today's data-driven game, being marginally better is enough. Fans hate the platoon system because it sucks. There's very little in the way of playing hunches or going with the hot hand because baseball is a sport of statistics, devoid of emotion. The quants say make the move and the move is made. Just like how baseball quants never overlook data, you need to stop overlooking your online privacy. That's where today's video partner NordVPN comes in. The internet is unpredictable as a curveball, filled with potential threats lurking in every corner. But with a single click, NordVPN protects you from online threats. With their Threat Protection Pro, you get advanced protection from phishing, malware, and other online scams. Clicking a link, it blocks websites used for fraud and scams. Downloading a file, Threat Protection Pro checks it for malware. It even blocks annoying pop-ups, giving you a smoother browsing experience. You never have to worry about privacy because NordVPN never tracks or logs your online activities. It provides military-grade encryption and even offers a kill switch feature to protect your data from unexpected exposure. But maybe the best part of all is that you can use NordVPN on all your devices, and you only need one account. So if you're looking for a better, faster, and safer online experience, use the link in the description at nordvpn.com/inning and get an additional 4 months on a 2-year plan. And don't worry, they also have a 30-day money-back guarantee, so trying it out is completely risk-free. There are 3 mysteries we have to look at when it comes to being left versus right-handed in baseball. Handedness in baseball actually goes much deeper than these charts show. There are many mysteries that need to be solved, other data points that point in the opposite directions at the same time. The first mystery is this: where have the true lefties gone? The throws left, hits left lefties, the actual genetic lefties. As of 2020, there were 37 fielders who threw left-handed, which equaled 11.6 of MLB, or very close to the world percentage of true lefties. The vast majority of left-handed hitters at-bats came from right-handed throwers like Christian Yelich, Bryce Harper, and Rafi Devers. But in 2013 to 2014, the percentage of lefty throwers was 18%, but then that number plunged to the lowest since 1964. No one knows why. Could have been a shift which overwhelmingly affected left-handed hitters. In fact, lefties used to get almost half of all plate appearances, and so the current 40% represents a steep decline. But a better explanation might be something called positional versatility, or the super utility player that was perfected by Ben Zobrist, who had the game's second highest WAR in 2009. Zobrist could play every infield and outfield position, and did, often changing positions many times during a game. He was also a switch hitter, meaning that he occupied one roster spot but was more like 2 players. He threw right-handed. There really can't be a super utility player who throws lefty because lefties can only play 4 out of the 8 field positions. Third base, shortstop, second base, and catcher are basically off limits for left-handed throwers. It's no surprise that the Dodgers with Mookie Betts and Tommy Edman have 2 of the game's best multi-positional players, since Dodgers exec Andrew Friedman had traded for Zobrist when he ran for the Rays front office. Oh, Edman and Betts both throw right-handed. Related to the first mystery, the second involves the position of first base. The case is this: where did all the left-handed first basemen go? Not left-handed hitting first basemen, there are plenty of those. Where did the left-handed throwing first baseman go? Here's the plot twist. It is well established that a true lefty first bagger is a better defensive fit than a right-handed thrower. Given that data analytics rules baseball decision making, especially when it comes to roster construction, it's hard to understand what happened in 2019. The American League had no true lefty first baseman who got at least 250 at-bats, something that didn't happen since 1914. Even in 2024, Anthony Rizzo and Cody Bellinger were the only 2 lefties who logged any significant time at first. The irony? The Yankees just got Bellinger because Rizzo retired. But lefties at first give many defensive advantages. They don't have to throw through the base runner on plays at second. They can step into the infield and make a direct throw. They also can make quicker tags while holding runners on. With the new rule changes about throwovers, pickoffs have become a more important feature of the game. You'd think that front offices would be prioritizing this, but there have been a death of true lefties overall. First is the easiest position to play, and given the emphasis placed on slug and OPS, that position isn't for the sweet swinging type like John Ollard. Teams want power. They want Matt Olson or Freddie Freeman. The defensive plays that give a lefty an advantage don't happen often, and a big bat can more than make up for any drop-off in defensive wins above replacement. The next mystery is perhaps related to the lack of lefties at first base. It involves pitchers. One theory posits that it's possible that any lefty who can throw at all gets pushed into becoming a pitcher only, even in high school, because the upside is so promising. Lefty pitchers have a greater chance of making it to the show than any other position on the diamond. The mystery is this: how is it possible given that lefties, on average, don't have good stuff? Because there are two dynamics here that don't align: pitch quality versus pitch outcome. Lefties and righties aren't the same in both of these categories. The pitch outcomes are similar, no doubt, but pitch quality isn't the same. It's not even close. In one study that spans 12 years of data, it turns out that lefties and righties had similar pitch outcomes. The runs surrendered per 9 was almost the same, as were Ks per 9, walks per 9, HRs allowed per 9, batting average on balls put into play, and fielding independent pitching. No matter what metric you used, southpaws and righties had pretty much the same pitching outcomes. You might be thinking, hey, lefties get hitters out just like righties do, ergo their stuff must be basically the same. But we have tools to measure this stuff: velocity, spin rate, horizontal or vertical break. Of these, the most crucial is velocity, because elite velo is harder to hit than any other pitch. But it's clear that no matter what pitch gets thrown, on average, a right-hander throws harder. If you dive deeper, it turns out that only 14% of lefties average over 94 miles per hour on their four-seamer, whereas 38% of righties exceed that threshold. Fine, you say to yourself, lefties are crafty. They can make the ball break in crazy ways, hence we should see more elevated spin rates for lefties because spin is required for pitchers to break vertically and horizontally. The correlation is pretty tight. The more the ball spins, the more it breaks. But guess what? Righties on average have higher spin rates on every pitch except one, the changeup. That might be very important, and the reason that lefties are often called crafty. Their slowest pitch spins more and drives down more. Wait a second, we can measure the break of pitches compared to the average to see if the spin rate of a lefty's changeup does indeed break more. The result is that the average southpaw's changeup has 0.1 inches less than the MLB average break, while righties have 0.3 inches more than average. So what's going on? Researchers in 2010 found that a drop of 1 mile per hour of fastball velo led to an increase of 0.28 runs per 9. Given lefties throw about 1.5 miles per hour slower on average, lefties should give up about 0.4 runs per 9, but they don't. Righties and lefties have the same pitch outcomes. If you throw in the better break and spin rate of righties, then lefties probably should be surrendering more like 0.6 runs per 9, but they aren't. And in case you're wondering, giving up 0.6 fewer runs per game would take an 81 win team to a 92 win team. And remember, lefties already face a platoon penalty of about 0.2 runs per 9, so now we're looking at 0.8 runs per 9 that lefties should be giving up, but don't. What's happening? How do the pitch outcomes of righties and lefties end up the same? They hold runners on better, so that's worth about 0.05 runs per game, so where is the other 0.75 runs coming from? It's coming from the unfamiliarity effect. The fact that hitters just didn't see lefties much as they were growing up, in the Little League and high school. Data experts have pegged the unfamiliarity effect in baseball to be 0.75 runs, a huge advantage, one that makes up for the inferior stuff that many lefties have. Not all lefties, of course. The elite lefty throws as hard with pitches that spin and break as much as righties. But it's clear that many lefties made it to the bigs not because they blew hitters away, but because hitters couldn't figure them out. So what is the difference between being right-handed versus left-handed? For hitters, obviously, lefties are closer to first base and they tend to have a higher batting averages, whereas righties tend to cluster around the mean. In today's game of positional flexibility, righties seem to be enjoying the advantage because teams want players like Mookie Betts who can play multiple positions on defense. Lefties just can't fill that role, or catch, or play 3 out of the 4 infield positions. There have been 191 MVP winners since 1931, and left-handed pitchers or hitters have won the award 34.6 of the time, 3 times what you would expect of 11% of the world's population. The all-time home run list is an equal measure of lefties and righties, but only 3 of the 24 300-game winners were lefties. So, should a future dad hope for a left-handed son? The odds of making it to the show are indeed better for a southpaw, but maybe the dad should also get a first baseman's mitt too and teach the kid to switch hit. Or this future dad could do what Pat Venditti's father did, teach him how to pitch with both hands. Pat Venditti was the game's only ambidextrous pitcher who threw from both sides, sometimes during the same at-bat. It happened during a spring training game when he faced a switch hitter. The hitter kept changing size, and Venditti kept switching gloves. Now we have the Pat Venditti rule in baseball, where the pitcher must declare what arm he's going to throw with. Pat Venditti spent time with half a dozen teams during a brief career, which reveals another rule about MLB. Many are called, few are chosen.